Greetings. This is R. Frederick Riddle with another episode of Christian News and View. This is episode 117. This is Wednesday, and we're looking at a couple of Supreme Court decisions. The first one is on deportation, and this was a couple of things involved there. There was one man who apparently was mistakenly deported, but the whole thing comes down to being: does this United States does the President of the United States have the authority to deport people? So the United States Supreme Court has ruled that the President of the United States has the authority to run his own administration. Now I hope you caught what I just did. I mixed my opinion, and the facts together, as does the media on a daily basis. But they're kind of mixed together anyhow, and so I'm going to, in this particular part, I am mixing it. I'm going to try to let you know. Most of this is going to be opinion. The fact is that the United States has ruled the President has the authority to deport. So, here's my opinion, if you want. We have a constitutional government has the power to run their own branch. There's a legislative branch, is run by the House of Representatives and Senate. They make the rules that members must abide by. They also control the purse strings. They make laws. They pass all sorts of laws and things that run our government. The judicial branch is run by the Supreme Court. That court makes rules governing all the courts. It also judges the laws that the legislative branch has passed. Are they correct? Are they constitutional? Things of this nature. Likewise, it has now been confirmed that the President of the United States has control over the agencies of and the branch itself of the executive or administrative branch. Now, notice I said has now been confirmed. I'm being a little bit sarcastic there. No, I'm being a lot sarcastic there. It shouldn't have taken the courts to demonstrate this fact, but it did. Actually, this is an important victory in what is called lawfare. So I could have easily have titled this whole thing Lawfare. Old lawfare was a term referring to endless lawsuits aimed at destroying Donald Trump. This was seen in his first administration. He was attacked by indictments, impeachments, and civil suits, all with the intent to destroy him. They went into our courts and fought this right on up, and some of them went all the way up to the Supreme Court. Impeachments went up to the Senate, and the Senate had to hear it and come down with their verdict. All these were ridiculous. They were unfounded. Some people would say, they would cite the Constitution, but the Constitution they were citing is the one right here in their head, not the one that was passed back in the 18th century, not the one in which our founding fathers wrote and passed in Philadelphia, not the one that our government has been ruled by ever since. It's by the one they have in their imagination. And to them, that's more accurate, more important than the actual Constitution itself. And so they would accuse, there's even some Republicans or former Republicans who have done this. So the Constitution of the United States, the one that was written, the one that was passed, adopted by the 13 states, that's the Constitution that I'm referring to. And all these things cost money. When you go into a court, it costs taxpayer money to do all that. The impeachment of Donald Trump, it's been total 3 times. All 3 of them cost money, taxpayer money. Why? Because they didn't get what they wanted. They wanted to get rid of him, to destroy him. They didn't care whether the law was broken or not. They stretched it. They called a riot, which is all it was. They called a riot an insurrection. although it didn't even pass the first test of an insurrection. So, but all these failed. One way or another, they failed. Now we come to Donald Trump 2.0. Donald Trump re-elected as President of the United States. And now we come to what's called the new Lawfare. It came into being when he was re-elected. They're still trying to destroy him. They haven't given up on that. But now they've added something else to stop his agenda. Now the interesting thing is, they're going against a far more experienced president than they did the first time around. First time around, Donald Trump was feeling his way, like all new presidents do. He was confident and he was very competent, but he probably made some mistakes. I don't know what they are. I didn't even look to see what mistakes he made. They were minor, if there were any. But like anybody who's first into an office, you run and you go up. He would go up against courts, for instance, he'd bump against this wall or that wall, and he learned a lot. Now he's reelected. He's even more confident than he was before. He knows what he wants to do, and he knows how to go about it. He has a much broader, deeper understanding of how the government runs than he did when he first got there. Now, when he was dumb, he was no more dumb than any other person who's ever stepped into that office for the first time. It's a whole new field, a whole new experience. But he learned from it, and he learned fast. Now he's there the second time around, and he has an agenda, and he's going at it full force. Well, they're coming back at him at full force as well. And now they don't just want to destroy him, they want to stop his agenda. And these victories that I'm talking about today, the first one was on deportation. That was the very first victory in this battle that is going on. This new lawfare. So the news media, their response to this is they're mystified. They don't understand. How is it that Donald Trump can survive their attacks? I mean, how dare he? They're smart. They're certainly smarter than Trump, right? Well, I think the record says otherwise. One reporter stated that the law that the Supreme Court based their decision on the deportation on was enacted in 1897. She then pointed out that it was an 18th century law. Now, I caught that as soon as she said it. I thought, oops, that was a slip. But a few moments later, she said it again. Now, we say it one time, it's a slip of the tongue. You say it the second time, and now you're starting to wonder. You know, maybe her elevator don't go all the way up to the top. Maybe she out of her element. I don't know what she did. At least she didn't do it a third time. That would have really been the tipping stone. But the 1800s, for those of you who don't know this, and I don't think there's anybody out here other than her that doesn't know this, the 1800s are referred to as the 19th century. The 2000s are referred to as the, the 1900s are referred to as the 20th century, the 2000s as the 21st century, which is what we're living in today. So I'm glad that I got that cleared out in case there's anybody out there who doesn't know that. Other news regarding the Supreme Court is they ruled that the president has the power and the authority to examine the state of New York's financial books and any state's financial books to determine if they are using federal funds, grants, etc. correctly. Now that's common sense. You give money, even if you're a private entity and you're giving money away, you have the legal right to check to make sure, unless you are giving that money away and no strings attached, which never happens. Well, I shouldn't say never. There may be an exception here or there. Very rare that it ever happens that anybody gives away money with no strings attached. And I have never ever heard of the government, state, local, state, or federal, giving away money without some kind of a string attached. And when there's a string attached, that means that they can hold you accountable, whatever that string is, they can hold you accountable to it. This includes the state's use of funds for sports, and for instance, who can play in them, and things of this nature. Regulations and laws governing the sports, state laws. Education, education within that state, the laws, the rules, the regulations, things of this nature, the practices, and DEI. Uh, all these have come under that accountability. And so the federal government says this, and the state does this. We'll put it over here a little bit further. They are no longer in compliance with that federal law, and that's what we're looking at here. The state of New York, and some 20 other states were out of compliance with the federal law. But in their opinion, well, their law was greater than the federal law. This was originally brought by New York State Attorney General Letitia James. Now, neither of these charges or lawsuits, this one here or the one about deportation, should have ever been processed and never have reached the Supreme Court. Should have been shot down early, but it wasn't, because we have activist judges out there. Common sense says that the federal government has the right and the duty to make sure the funds are properly administered and directed according to law. It is called accountability. Now remember, earlier I mentioned we have three branches of government. You have the legislative, the judicial, and the executive branches. The legislative covers the making of laws. The judicial makes sure those laws are constitutional. And the executive has the responsibility of administering. They are also responsible to the judicial, and to another degree to the legislative. All three branches are separate, yet they are intertwined. And the Supreme Court says, no, wait a minute. The executive branch has the right to set up how things are going to be run, how grants are going to be given out. They have the right to govern their own house, so to speak. And so whenever you receive funds from a government, you should know this. You are responsible to that government for how you use the funds. It's just simple, common sense. Letitia James lost twice, and it's very possible we'll hear from her again. So I just want you to understand that Letitia James, I don't know what her grades were. I don't know what college she went to, or any of them. I don't know. I don't know how she felt that day, for that matter. Maybe she got up off the wrong side of the bed. I don't know. But she went before an audience, a public audience, and made some charges and accusations against the President of the United States and against the executive branch. This simply weren't true. And she quoted she quoted constitutional law that didn't really exist, not in the way she quoted it. Somebody said that she actually quoted scripture. Now, I don't remember what scripture she supposedly quoted. But in any case, she was out of her realm in a way. Like I said, I don't know how she felt that day. She was obviously angry, and very passionate, but anger and passion are not the rule of law. The Constitution is the rule of law. Federal law itself is the rule of law, and that is what you go by. And you can appeal things all the way up to the Supreme Court against that rule of law. Maybe you might say that law is unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court is going to make that decision. And and sometimes you have the Supreme Court will say, "Oh, this is constitutional." Later on, the Supreme Court might change their mind on it. Well, that's no longer that it should not have been, that's not constitutional. Then another court later on can say, yes, it was, and restore it. It's just a simple thing, but the Supreme Court's the final judge in every case, and you wait until they either change their mind. And until they do, you are bound to obey that law. So that's the thing. It is that Tisha James brought two unnecessary lawsuits. Well, she would argue they were necessary, I'm sure. Uh, Two unnecessary lawsuits costing taxpayers a ton of money, wasted money, that simply common sense should have told her you didn't have a leg to stand on. But she fought it anyhow. Most time, if somebody sticks to their guns and fights for it, I cheer them on, even if I may not totally agree with them. But if they believe in something, they should fight for it. But making it up, those of you who follow me know that I am a very cautious person when it comes to like artificial intelligence. Maybe that's where she got her facts, was artificial intelligence, because they're not actually in the Constitution, some of the things she says and claims. But basically it's right up here, and she imagined them, and therefore they were fact. Sort of like how some reporters do it, right? They have their opinions, and then they will mix those opinions in with actual facts, and then say the whole thing is a fact. So I'm not going to get on that soapbox. I get on it enough. But that's why this podcast exists, to separate fact from opinion. That's it for today. Oh, by the way, I do encourage you to, right down below here, right about there, you will find an opportunity to subscribe to this channel, which is TR Independent Books. By subscribing, you not only ensure that you have access to both my podcasts, Christian News and Views, which you're watching right now, and you have you'll get the podcast. Becoming a published author is fun. I have fun just doing it. I give away information, valuable information, for free to anybody who wants to write. They may have to go elsewhere and pay for it, but I'm giving that information away for free. I have a course, and I teach on those subjects, but it's in a greater depth. But there's just some stuff I feel like it's necessary to share. Why? Because I've been there. I learned, cut my teeth, you could say. I'm learning it the hard way, how to write, how to get published, and how to get my books out there for people to see and to buy. So that is something that I give away for free. So I encourage you to subscribe, and I will promise you in return I promise that I will inform you, encourage you, and inspire you. That's my goal every time I do a podcast. So with that said, you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.